Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm back with another Plan With Me video. This time I'm using a different technique with my Tombow markers. It's the way I prefer to turn them into watercolors. So I take a small porcelain plate, but you can also take a plastic plate or any type of plastic surface, and I apply some of the color in it. Then I take my water brush, and if I want to have a darker shade of the color, I take more color on my brush with minimum water. If I want a lighter shade, then I add more water and mix with the color. I love doing this because it allows me to use all my Tombow markers in a different way and get more shades out of one color. Make sure to test your notebook first on one of the back pages to see how it responds to watercolors. And also try not to add too much water on your brush. When deciding on the theme for my monthly setup, I like to get inspiration from everything around me, and I prefer to choose themes that are not the usual ones that you would associate with certain months. So for November, I decided to go with the theme November in the City. However, it's not the traditional big city with the huge buildings and the skyscrapers that you usually expect. It's a smaller city with cute and more traditional houses. The thing that took me the most time was to decide on the colors that I was going to use. I started using my pastel colors, but I wasn't feeling it. I wanted to show the winter through the colors, and my colorful pastel Tombow markers were not the right ones. Then, as I was looking through my feed on Instagram, I saw a picture from Desenio and I loved the colors. So I decided to use a similar palette for my theme for November. Therefore, expect lots of light blue and turquoise as well as different shades of grey. We start as always with the cover page of the month. I added lots of different style houses, one next to the other. I like how cute they look, and the colors give it a more cold and wintry look. I also added the silhouettes of some birds on a wire, and I chose a more calligraphic font to write the month. Make sure to check the description below to see all the supplies that I've used for this theme. As you can see, the watercolors bled through the page, unfortunately. When I tested the watercolors in my Dingbat's notebook, it worked well with no bleeding. However, I think I used more layers of watercolor on the cover page, and maybe my brush was more wet than it should. Moving on to the month at a glance page, I like the single page layout and I've used it for a couple of months already. I've added some houses and birds to follow with the theme. I let this page dry while I move on to the next one to create my monthly tasks list. Since we're coming closer to the end of the year, it's really important to set up some goals for ourselves in order to catch up with everything that we've set up to accomplish in 2018. As always, I created my two categories for personal and business, and I added some light blue lines this time to add color. I also like how simple and cute the silhouettes of the birds look. Then I go back and trace the drawing in my monthly page. The next spread is where I allocate different tasks per week in order to accomplish my goals. I find this incredibly useful as it helps me to stay on track with all my planning. I highly recommend to try this page for yourself to see the difference. On the page opposite is where I keep all my notes during the month. I always like to add light colored lines and some doodles to add some elements of the theme in it. In my previous video, some of you commented on how straight my freehand lines look, so I'll just show you how I do it. The first thing is to place the tip of the Tombow flat to get the thicker line. Then, you keep your wrist steady and instead you do the whole movement with your elbow. Make sure you have enough space on the surface you're writing on to move freely. And that way helps me to keep my lines quite straight. Let me know if you found this helpful. Lastly but not least comes my first weekly spread of the month. I'm using a layout that I tried in October and I loved it. I got inspired for it by the lovely Sailor Shen. I kept it quite simple this time with minimum coloring and doodles, and I love the simplicity and the functionality of it. Alright, with that we are finished with the setup, and here's what everything looks like. This time I also show you all my weekly spreads for November, since I always create all my weeklies from the start. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and as always I'm really excited to see your recreations, so make sure to tag me on Instagram. I hope you have a lovely month ahead, and I'll see you in my next video.